everybody! Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. I was grabbing some more yarn. So, you know how that goes. And I am down here on my back patio again because it's another hot day in Missouri. So, I don't know, I think it's supposed to be like 90 today. Maybe warmer. And the ducks are down here again, so you may hear them going in the background. They were very excited when I came down because they were really hoping for snacks. Anyway, Tina is moving today, so I am kind of filling in for her. And then we're starting our sock series. So I have just regular circular needles, although these are signatures. I also have Hiya Hiyas. And I have the Hiya Hiya, I think these are called Flexi Flyers, something like that. Flyers. These are the fixed ones. I don't have the interchangeable ones with me, I just have the fixed ones. And then I have a set of interchangeables, and I have my trusty double-pointed needles. And we do sell the signature double-pointed needles as well as several other brands. We do carry the ChiaoGoo, and we can absolutely get these twist mini sets for you if you would really like one. They're really nice because you have 000, 000, 1, and 1.5, and that's 2.5 down to 1.5 millimeters. So these are really nice small needles to have, and they come with, you know, the cables and this nice little bag. So I have those. We have those online as well, or we can order them in for you if we don't have the sets up right now. These guys, these are really popular right now. The Addi version and the Hiya Hiya version. I actually really like the Hiya Hiya version. I need to do just a pair of plain socks on these, so maybe I will try our socks on the Hiya Hiya Flyers, because I have to say I'm really a double-pointed needle kind of gal. I really like my double-pointed needles. I use these all the time. In fact, I just finished this sock in some stash yarn for a friend today, and I use my double-pointed needles. And I did invest in signatures because I really like the signature, and you know, these are my go-to needles for socks. This is what makes me happiest. But everybody has their own preferences. I tend to like going top down on my socks. I feel like I have more control over it. I like the way it fits my foot better. So I wear like a size 9 shoe, and I have kind of an average foot. It used to be more narrow, and now it's a little more average. I've got a little bit of a bunion on one foot. Thank you, genetics and grandma. And bad shoes. Bad shoes can also give you bunions. So I really like the way that a top-down sock fits. I don't like the heel options that I have on a toe-up sock, and that's a personal preference. But if you really love toe-up socks, there is no reason not to make toe-up socks. And if you've never made socks before, I really encourage you to go ahead and make a lot of different socks. You know, try a top-down pair, try a toe-up pair, try different heels. You know, take really good measurements of your foot, because you need to figure out if you have a little wider heel or a little narrower heel, so that you can get a really good fit on your sock. That'll put a lot less wear on your sock, and then you won't have to darn your sock. Although if you do need to darn your socks, I did do a video about that earlier this year, so you can go check that out. For today, what I want to focus on is specifically cast-ons and the different needles that you use while casting on. So how to join in the round when you are doing magic loop, or how to join in the round when you are using the Flexi Flyer things, and how to join in the round when you're doing double-pointed needles. And so I got out, you know, kind of a selection of needles, and I did pick up several yarns. So this one is Lilliput, this one is Blazing Fibers, and then this is my random ball of sock yarn that Ina helped me make to do those crazy socks, which I've talked about a couple of times. So my goal today is to answer your questions about cast-ons and answer your questions about different methods of making socks. And if I didn't mention it yet today, I don't think I have, no matter how your pattern is written. If it says, you know, I used double pointed needles, or I used interchangeables, or I used, you know, magic loop, you don't have to make your socks the same way. So you can go ahead, and if you really love double pointed needles, like I do, then no matter what the pattern says, you can make your socks on double pointed needles. And if you really love doing, you know, 2 at a time, then there is absolutely no reason why you can't use, you know, a circular needle or an interchangeable set of circulars, even if I've said that I used double points in my pattern. So just because the pattern says that they used a specific needle, and that's another thing, if the pattern said I used signature and you really love ChiaoGoo, you don't have to use signature. It's just, it's more information. That's how I always look at it. It's more information so that you have a better understanding of what I did to achieve my gauge. And it just gives you hints for how to gauge yourself. So when you look at the needles, and I always, as a designer, that's something that's really important to me, is I always try to list the exact needle that I used, so that if I was using metal needles or I was using wooden needles, if I was using double points, that you have a better idea or a better understanding of what I did to get gauge. And so that should help you when you're trying to get gauge, because personally for me, I know that on like double pointed needles like birch, Brittany birch for example, I knit tighter because I pull on them, and I always worry about my birch needles snapping, which I don't think I snapped, one, but I bent one pretty good one time. So, you know, that's just something that I do, and it's partially because of the way that it grabs. I knit a little looser and a little faster on metal needles. I don't knit quite as fast on magic loop, although I do like it for traveling. And while I do like the flyers sometimes, I have to say, I also really like having, like needle, the ducks have joined me now. They're like right behind my chairs. So if they get quackity quackity, I'll shoo them away. So the flyers, I like to have some kind of, like a needle tip to capture them, so that my stitches don't slide off the ends when I'm traveling. And I didn't show you guys this the other day, but when I am knitting on a sock and I have to pause and I've got my double pointed needles in, so pretend that, you know, there's 4 needles in here. What I do is I always fold my work, and then I take my 5th needle and I stick it in my work and push it through, so that it looks kind of like this, so that it holds all of my needles really tight together, and I have that 5th one holding them all in position, and then my stitches can't slide off the ends as easily. So that's like a little tiny tip if you're going to use double pointed needles, whether you're using 3 or 4 needles with your working needle. That's something that I do, is I fold my sock, and then I just take that double pointed needle and I stick it on through, so that my stitches don't wander off the ends, and it works really well for me. And I've done that for years and years and years and years and years. And I've probably made at least 120 pairs of socks. I've made so many socks. They're just one of my favorite things to make. They really are. All right, so having said all of that, now let's get into the nitty-gritty. So I'm going to cast on. I'm not going to do a full sock cast on. I'm not going to do like 50 stitches. I will demonstrate with about 20. That way you can get the idea of it. But I don't want to take too much time casting on. So I really want to focus on, for top-down socks, 2 different cast-ons. I really like just the long tail, plain long tail, and I really love the Twisted German. And I have videos that are linked on our Black Sheep website that you can go to. So we have free videos up on YouTube that you can go check out that have more in-depth information and instructions on how to do the cast-ons that I'm going to demonstrate. But I'm going to get into it just a little bit and show you how to do magic loop and the double pointed needles, and then I'll get out the flyers as well. So let me just turn this. And there you can see detritus from putting together Ina's little swing set playhouse. Okay, I think, there we go. Now doesn't that look like all kinds of fun right there? All right, So let's start, since I have them right here, let's start with just a circular needle. And I have, this one has a long cable, You can see it's all folded up right here. And I do that because if you're going to do magic loop, then you need longer cables. If you're going to do like socks on 2 circulars, for example, then you may want a shorter cable, which is also where these guys come in, because these are essentially like having really short little circular needles, just short little circular needles, which is kind of nice. So let's see. So the first thing that you need to do is, I always start off with a slip knot. Some people don't. I do. It's a personal thing. It was kind of the way that I taught myself. You can just wrap a loop of yarn around your needle tip and go from there, but I always like having the security of that little slip knot when I'm getting ready to cast on. So just tighten my slip knot down. To set your hand, let's talk about long tail first. To set your hand for the long tail cast on, I always weave my yarn through as I'm going to tension it. And then you want to make a triangle. And so I always use my tail as my outside piece. Some people don't. Your tail does use more yarn when it's the outside piece. So if you changed this direction, you will get more use out of your tail if you're running it on the inside of your hand, if that makes sense, because it's only making the over the top loop and it doesn't have to go through all of the mechanics of being the base loop for your cast on. So for today, I'm going to use that tail on the outside, ball thread on the inside, and I need to make a little bit of a triangle. So I'm going to run the ball thread over my finger, and I'm going to do the tail thread over my thumb, and then I'm going to hold them both down under my pinky. So both down under my pinky. And again, I do have videos that go very slowly and in depth on this and show you how to do a long tail cast on. Now the basic long tail cast on, all you're going to do is go under this loop on your thumb, going to grab that loop coming off of your index finger, which is coming from your ball. You're going to drop that loop off your thumb and then tighten that down. Just doing that again. We go under and we go scoop a stitch and bring it through. Drop the loop and tighten it down. And that is your basic long tail cast on. Now, if you're going to do the twisted German cast on, you set up for it the same way, but you take your needle all the way into the inside edge and you're going to twist this loop as you move it. So you're going to take that needle, bring it up, grab that ball thread again, pull it back through the loop, release the loop, and pull it down. And all that does is it adds a little bit of an extra twist here in the base of that cast on. So again, kind of slow. Bring it through the loop, drop your thumb down so that it twists, grab that ball thread and scoop it through, drop the loop from your thumb and pull it tight. And again, all that is going to do is it's just going to twist your edge a little bit more. You get just a slightly more elastic cast on than you do with the regular long tail, just like this. So the first two up here, these were done with our regular long tail cast on. And you can see it looks slightly different here in the bumps. See if I can get that to focus. There we go. Slightly different there in the bumps along. And again, I do have videos that focus just on the cast on. So now I'm just going to go ahead and put on my 20 stitches, and then I'll show you how to sort of adjust your needles and prepare to work magic loop so that you can start your sock. So I've got 7. Let's do 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. All right, so there I've got my 20 stitches. And a very short tail. I wouldn't recommend having a tail quite that short, especially if you were a new sock knitter. You want a little bit of a tail left at the end so that you can weave it through like I've done right here. So you can weave it through the edge and then I weave my tail up and then back down one of the ribs. And then I wash these before I cut my ends so that my yarn can settle into all the grooves in the knitting so that my tails don't pop out as easily, and then I clip my tails. So that's why the tails are left long on that sock. It's waiting for its mate, and then a nice wash. Okay, so now that we have our stitches on here, in order to set up for magic loop, you've got to move your stitches over to the cable. And then I usually try to, you can put a stitch marker at the halfway point now, or you can do it later, but I always try to figure out the halfway point. Unless, of course, your pattern states differently. Sometimes a pattern will state differently and they'll tell you what to do. But we're gonna find that halfway point in the stitches, and then what we need to do is we need to pull that cable. And this is the fiddly part of top-down magic loop, is that you've got to pull this cable. Let's see if I can manage to not knock over the phone and the camera. There we go. So now it's started. There we go. So I do want part of my stitches to be on a needle, but I don't want them on that needle because that needs to be our working needle. So I'm just going to pull all the way through until I have my stitches on both of my needles. And it's going to look a little funny and it's going to stretch a little bit, and that's just something that you have to sort of agree to when you decide to do magic loop. Okay, and I've turned this so that now my tail and my working yarn are in position. So in order to join this in the round, I need to pull this needle out. So I'll show you that one more time. It's not hard. You've positioned it so that all your stitches are sort of on both those needles. You're just going to pull that needle out so that it's in position, and we have our yarn in position. And then I always double check and I make sure that my cast on edge is pointed to the inside or is going the same direction, and that this hasn't flipped so that I don't have sort of an infinity sock. I don't think you can wear an infinity sock, so it's really important to make sure that you haven't twisted your cast on. Does anybody have questions so far? I think we're doing okay, but okay. And then I'm just gonna knit along. Usually you would start your ribbing at this point, so you would be doing knit, purl, or whatever your ribbing you've decided on. And you just knit all the way across. And you will find that there are some gaps. See, this is a bit of a gap here. So you can close this up at the end by weaving your tail in through this loop, or you can choose to cast on an extra stitch and knit two together on the next round and decrease one stitch away, and that's also a way to help get rid of this gap. So two different ways to do that. All right, so there was magic loop as well as a little demo on casting on. And let's look at the flyers next, because those are similar to doing socks on two circs. So this time when I cast on, and I'm going to cast on pretty quick, I'm going to do 20 stitches again just for the ease of numbers, because that's a pretty typical sample for me, is to cast on 20 stitches. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right. So at this point, instead of casting on all 20 stitches on one needle, what I'm going to do is shift these over so that I can tip my needle down And I am going to go ahead and lay my next needle in and cast on my next set of stitches. 2, 3, shoo duckies, shoo, shoo. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Okay, so now I have needles that kind of look like this. And again, we do want to make sure that we don't end up with a twisted cast on, which could result if this flopped over. So we want to make sure that all the little bumps from our cast on face inward. Hi, duckies. Okay, the ducks have come to visit, so here they are. They're saying hi. There's 3 of them, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, that's right. Go on, I'm demonstrating. Okay. Where were we? Ah, yes, making sure that we don't have a twisted cast on. So at this point, you're going to move your hands around so that we can, again, make sure that our cast on hasn't twisted. So all those little bumps need to be pointing the same direction. That's what I look at. So they're all pointing down, that's great. If they're all pointing in, that's also great. But if they've twisted around, you can see there will be a twist here if you've managed to twist your cast on. So now what I'm going to do, similar to what we did with the magic loop, is I'm going to let this side just hang out on the cable. This side I'm actually going to join using my 3rd needle that was included in that packet. And again, you would usually start by, like, say, knit, purl, knit, purl. And I apologize for the awkwardness of this. I'm doing it under the camera, so I'm trying to be careful. And knit, purl all the way across. And again, we talked about that gap. You are going to have a gap at the very beginning. Hopefully it's small because you've pulled your yarn tight. The ways to combat that gap, there we go. The ways to combat that gap right there, this cast on gap, are by using your tail and just weaving it in at the end when you're all done, or by casting on that extra stitch, and then you would actually decrease it away on the next round. It's totally up to you. So there's casting on with our flyers. And then my favorite, of course, is the double-pointed needle, which I know is intimidating for some people because, oh my God, there's so many needles. And I get that. I understand. I really do. But I love double-pointed needles, and it's my favorite thing for making socks. So, and again, this is another top-down cast-on. I haven't addressed any of the toe-up cast-ons yet. I'm just looking at the top-down. That's our first thing today. So I've made my little slip knot, and I'm going to do 20 stitches, but this time I'm only going to do 5 stitches per needle, and I'm going to cast on each needle separately as I go around. And I'm going to lay them in, just like I did with those Hiya flyers. Only I don't have the cable in the middle of the needle, which is bending. So I'm just going to keep laying them in and casting on. 3, 4, and 5. One more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now at this point, I know it looks really intimidating because here I have all these needles that are hanging out, right? Super intimidating. But the thing is that if you follow along with what I had been saying, which is make sure that your cast on isn't twisted, and I can see that this section twisted, that if you fold your needles into a square, suddenly it's not so intimidating. I'm just going to set those down for a minute so you can see it. So here's our little square that's been cast on. And you can very easily see that the cast on edge follows all the way around and it's not twisted now. So this is how I ensure that I don't end up, I very, very rarely end up with a twisted cast on, because I always take extra care. I set my project down, I look at it on my lap, I hold it in my hands, I make sure that I don't see that twist before I go ahead and I pick up the joining point where the yarn is going to join from. I'll get the tail out of the way here. Oops, I got a really long tail that time. You do not need a tail that long, I'll tell you that now. And we're just going to join it right here. And you'll do the same thing that we've been doing, which is you'll just go ahead and you'll start knitting that stitch. So you can knit the first stitch and then you can purl, and then knit, and then purl, and then knit. Okay. So there we go. There's our double pointed needles. You can see we've cast on. You can see we still have that gap here. You're still going to have to deal with that gap. You can pull on this tail a little bit to tighten it up, but you are still going to end up with a gap there. And that's just the nature of knitting. The way that you can get around that, again, is to weave that tail in at the end, or to cast on an extra stitch and then decrease it away on the next round. It's up to you. So those are 3 different needle types, kind of the same method, but 3 different needle types, 3 different ways that you can knit with your needles to start your top-down socks. So if you are going to do toe-up socks, then you're going to really just be casting on over 2 needles. And the way that you're going to be doing that, no matter whether you have double pointed needles, whether you have a long circular needle, or whether you have the Hiya Flyers, is you'll be using either the Turkish cast on, or Turkish cast on, Judy's Magic cast on, or I call it Kelly's cast on, which is a little bit like having a long tail cast on. Where you make that triangle, and again, there's videos teaching you about this, and then you sandwich your yarn. So this is my Kelly's cast on, and then I call it you scoop a loop. So you scoop off your thumb, and you scoop off your index finger, and you can keep going back and forth and casting on. And the important part of this is just that when you are done, that you end up with something that you can knit. So here's our little cast on. Let's make sure I have 2, 4, 6, 8, hang on, 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, hang on, 10. I think I got 10 there. So this is a little bit trickier when you're doing these toe-up cast-ons. It's usually just a little bit tighter as you go in and you start to knit. It's not impossible, but you don't have to deal with a twisted cast-on like you have to worry about when you're knitting top-down. So that's an advantage there. If you have a wide toe, it's much easier to fit the socks to your wide toe than a top-down sock, because you can sort of try it on as you go. Where I always run into problems with toe-up socks is I run into problems when I am doing the heel. Sorry, I got kind of out of frame there. And I have trouble gauging exactly where to put my heel so that it fits well, because I have a slightly narrower heel. And so I have issues fitting the heel in on a toe-up sock. But no matter if you were using double-pointed needles or the Flyers or the Magic Loop or any other set of needles, this is what you would be doing on a toe-up sock, is you would be casting on across 2 needles and then working your way around and building your way out. So there we go. All kinds of fun ways to start socks. Okay, so get me back. go. And the duckies have gone to lay down, so it'll be nice and quiet for a little bit. So does anybody have questions about socks, about starting socks, about, you know, are there any other cast-ons that you want to talk about? You can always do, of course, you know, the simple over the thumb. You can do a knitted on cast-on. You can do a cabled on cast-on. There's tons of cast-ons that you can use to start socks, and other projects as well. Questions? Anybody? Questions? Maybe? No? You're all very quiet. You're always very quiet when I'm on. Chitty chatty with Tina, very quiet with me. And that's okay. Okay, so next time, now that we've kind of addressed how to cast on and the different methods, and you know, I've told you to try different methods to find the ones that you like best. Monday, what I want to talk about is doing your gauge swatch and then fitting socks to your feet, because we're just going to do a really basic plain sock. I'm going to wind this up and cast on with it, and I will walk through the whole method that I use to determine how big to make a sock, and what I do when I'm making what I think of as like my plain socks, my you know, plain old stockinette socks. This does really show off the yarn though. Very stripy hand dye. So Monday, that's the plan, is we're going to talk about gauge and fitting the socks to your feet, and then once we've walked through that, we'll talk a little bit about cuffs and ribbing and the balance of knits to purls and what you can choose. And then, let's see, Wednesday, if I'm lucky, I will be ready to turn the heel on the sock, and then we can talk about different kinds of heels. And I will attempt to find, I have a bag of socks, I have a bag of like single socks, I think, that are part of my Hoppy Feet sock book, and I'll try to find all of those, because in my Hoppy Feet sock book I go through a different cast on, a different heel, and a different toe for almost every sock in the book, and we do top down and toe up, and we address color work and lace and all kinds of different things in that Hoppy Feet sock book. But I will try to find those sock samples and pull them out to show you some different heels and different toes so that we can talk about that. So does anybody have questions about socks? Any questions? No. Okay. Don't forget, we are doing fun things at Black Sheep Fiber Emporium. So Tina is putting up videos for her Bingulben Shrug knit along, and she is, I think, almost ready to put up the second video on our YouTube channel. So we're Black Sheep Fiber Emporium on YouTube as well, so you can find us there. Her Bingulben Shrug is really fun. It uses 4 skeins of the Studio Donegal soft, and we have kits made up, so if you would like to find a kit, you can head to the website. That's blacksheepfiberemporium.com, and you can pick up a kit there. Let's see, what else do we have going on? Tina's moving today. I think I said that already, which is why I'm here. So that'll be exciting, because she is really hoping that she will be able to do the occasional like knit night, knit group at her house, and she's hoping to be able to offer shopping, private shopping every so often at the new shop space. So that'll be really fun. And what else do we have going on? There's always free shipping if you order at least $75 worth of stuff at Black Sheep Fiber Emporium, so make sure you check that out. Let's see. I don't know, there's just so much stuff going on. We are getting ready for the IOLI Unconvention. So if you are not a member of the International Organization of Lace Inc. and you are interested, you can check out their website. I believe that we have a link off of our Black Sheep Fiber Emporium website, so you can go check it out there as well. And I'm kind of, I don't know what to think about this Unconvention. We're going to be vending virtually at the Unconvention, and they have a mask contest, like a lace mask contest. So I don't know exactly how it's going to work, but you know, we don't know how most things are working right now. Everything's virtual, right? So it should be really interesting to see the unconvention and the teachers, and I will be there, sort of. I was supposed to be teaching this year. I am teaching next year, and I suppose I will be teaching in 2022 now instead. So I'm going to be showing off some of the things that I would have been teaching this year and some of the things I will be teaching next year. So I'm doing a sampler class next year. We're going to take all different kinds of yarn, so silk and cotton and bamboo, and not just wool is what we call it. It's not just wool when you're making lace. And so we're going to look at using all these different fibers for making knitted lace, and I'm hoping to do like some wire knitting and some other stuff there. And then my other class is a look at Shetland lace. So I usually talk about Estonian lace because that's near and dear to my heart, but I'm actually going to do a Shetland lace, which will be really fun. And that Rosita shawl that I designed is a sort of a modern take on traditional Shetland designs. So probably going to teach that for the class. It'll be super fun. I'm trying to think. And then this year I was teaching tatting, and we were looking at lots of different stuff with tatting. So I was teaching, my plan was 4 different days, 4 different focuses. So we were going to do wire tatting one day, and we were going to do picots in your work on one day, and then different ring and chain techniques one day, and then the 4th day I hadn't decided if we were going to do just more like fill-in techniques, or if we were going to look at like block tatting, or I don't know. There's just so many different things that you can do with tatting. It's so much fun. And we'll get back to doing some more tatting again after my little sock series is over. But I hope that you are joining in with my little sock series here. Pick out some yarn, get it wound, get ready to go. Make your little gauge swatch if you want to. Just do 20 stitches across, knit at least 2.5 to 3 inches, and then we'll talk about what to do with it on Monday. And we're gonna make some socks, or I'm gonna make some socks. So until next time, you know, stay safe, stay healthy, keep crafting, take care of yourselves. And don't forget us, Black Sheep Fiber Emporium, when you're looking for, you know, videos and patterns and help. And if there's something that you want us to show you, drop us an email. Put a comment on here. I'll see it. You can even comment on YouTube if you want. I do try to put up all of these videos on YouTube, although I occasionally miss one. But we want to know what you want to learn. I'm just trying to teach little things at least twice a week. And Tina's trying to pick up that 3rd day so that we can all stay in touch virtually. So I will see you next time. Make sure that you are liking our Facebook page. Make sure that you are hitting subscribe on the YouTube channel if you want to keep getting our videos and getting notifications when we go live. I do try to go live at about 2 p.m. Central Time on Mondays and Wednesdays, and Tina's trying to do something between like noon and 2 Pacific Time on Friday. So I will see you next time. Stay safe.